Clinic on Q, the show where we pick the brains of everyone and anyone involved in clinical research. I'm your host, Shauna Cusack, Global Sales Manager with Atlantia. And today we have a little bit of a different setup as we're joined by Stacey, who is our Clinical Research Investigator in our Chicago clinic. So thank you so much for joining us, Stacey, online today.
Of course.
With that, I will jump into the first question and let's get going. So could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. So 30 years actually in medicine. So started out as a nurse, went back to school, became a nurse practitioner, and then a doctorate of nurse practice. So various backgrounds of cardiology, cardiac ICU, oncology, family medicine, occupational health, pain medicine, orthospine. It just goes on and on. As a nurse, I did a little bit of clinical research in the oncology realm and also in the cardiac realm. Basically we worked in pharma, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, I have the bedside duties as a clinical research nurse. And so kind of got into it that way in my nurse practitioner role. And then, moving on and such like that, I actually surprisingly got a little bit more involved with actually liking more of the research and seeing how things actually, come together in research. As a clinical trial nurse, things are a little bit different than the role that I am currently in. So it was a, big eye opener of all the moving parts and pieces that actually take part in, setting up and getting things going in a clinical trial.
Cool. And was most of your previous experience in hospital settings then as opposed to a clinic setting?
Yes, except for cardiology, I did do in the outpatient setting as well. So in the doctor's office, we trialed one of a new statin that was coming out at that time, and now that's way back in the day. So we did do that trial, and then a couple other different types of cardiology trials, devices and such like that for, angiograms and such. Wow. So very interesting.
A wealth of experience and knowledge you have, so that's why we love having you here. This kind of is a similar question, but maybe can you tell us how your past work experience and your education there prepared you then for your role with Atlantia?
Yeah. Again, going back to the vast background that I have in the different areas, right? So unless you're going to specialize, when you're doing clinical trials, if you are just going to focus just like I said, like cardiology or oncology, you're completely focused in that realm. Yeah. Whereas with my background, I have the various backgrounds of, different areas within medicine. I did hands-on clinical, so I was bedside. I also teach. So actually having that knowledge and then going from actually doing the person who is being told, what to do and to follow the protocols and such like that. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm involved with talking with the sponsors and, getting the ideas of what are they looking for? What is their primary points? What do they want? What is their objectives? Yeah. Being in the realm of, a clinical research nurse and then my background of knowing the different varying diseases and disease processes, and then knowing the processes as a clinical research nurse, I built up to now I have a good idea. And then I fell into this position within Atlantia Clinical Trials, and I absolutely love it. And again, go back to, I never thought I was going to be like that person so involved in research. I love my research, don't get me wrong. And I love seeing, hey, here's the newest thing out in JAMA or whatever, article, and here's what they're saying and stuff like that. But now I actually can see it from the ground up, and I get an idea of everything that goes into it and all the different things that it takes in order to, get a clinical trial and actually have it run the way, we need to see it run for that evidence-based practice and to get all that really good data.
Yeah, there's a lot of steps involved. Yeah. And as you kind of touched upon, it's quite varied. I mean, one day you could be talking about cardiovascular health, which you have to, be an expert in. And then the next day you're talking about skin health or something, which you also have to be an expert in. So it's very varied. But I think you get like a really good experience and a really good, like, broad knowledge base of general health, I suppose, as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So next question then, in terms of clinical research investigator with Atlantia or within clinical trials, how do you maintain a high standard, especially when maybe looking at multi-center trials?
Yeah, multi-centered is a big one. There's a lot more involved with multi-center. So maintaining those high standards it involves several key factors, like understanding the protocols and the guidelines. That is like, I tell the team, this is our Bible. This is what
Yeah.
we have to go by, right? We
Yeah.
have to adhere by those. So knowing those, knowing what the sponsor is looking for, what is the ultimate goal of this?
Yeah.
So having that good background and knowledge of that stuff. The communication with everybody involved, from sponsors to, if we have multi centers, everybody that's involved at each center. So all the team members, everything. Um, Communication is the key to everything. So standardized training is huge. We can't have one person being trained like this and another person being trained like this and the other person like that. So we have to have that standardized training. Um,
Yeah.
Very important with that as well. So quality control, monitoring, data management is huge.
Yeah.
How we setting this up? What are we doing? Are we doing remote? Are we doing in clinic visits in person? Where are we going to store this data, and how are we capturing this data? Where are we going to put this stuff? Who wants what, and where do we want it, and when do we need it by? So, it's a lot. The big thing is patient safety and efficacy. I mean, we have taken a lot of the ethical considerations and such like that. So, collaborating and network kind of goes back to with that communications as well. But then sometimes we need those outside sources, right? Like we call like a third party vendor or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, where are we going to have our labs if we are not within a healthcare system? Where are we going to have labs done, or where are we sending out
Yeah.
our samples and such like that? So trying to do all that kind of stuff. But another thing is always continuous improvement. So it goes back to, we're monitoring, we're going through everything as we're going through it. We're
And
going
learning.
back,
Yeah.
we're reviewing all that data and all the steps, and making sure that everything is how it's supposed to be per the protocol, per the IRBs and ethical considerations and such like that, and just being on top of that.
Yeah, because I mean, like, we're all human, so mistakes are going to be made, but it's learning from the mistakes and then how you change that moving forward. So I think Atlantia is really good at, learning from mistakes that have happened, because it's inevitable, and then making changes then for the next time. And as you said, I think it keeps coming up over and over again, communication. So open communication internally as well as with the sponsors. So I think that's one thing that we're quite good at, is open communication. So it's good. Yes.
Yeah. And considering that, we are, we're in Chicago, you guys are in Cork.
Yeah.
I still feel like, even though it's, our Zoom calls and such like that, or our Teams meetings and that, I still feel like, we're still kind of like in a cubicle next door to each other,
Yeah.
next door to each other, because it's, like if I have a question or there's a question, we're right there, we're answering with each other and easily, communicating with each other.
And that ties in as well nicely with the kind of training, like you were saying. Like, I think all the Atlantia staff are trained on the same SOPs, the same quality manuals. So across the board, everybody's trained to do the same tests and run the same protocols. So yeah, works nicely. Yes, exactly. Okay, brilliant. So then next question, in what ways do you and your team engage with the broader clinical trials community to share insights, learnings, or collaborate on initiatives?
Yeah, learning from others, fostering that collaboration, absolutely huge. I wasn't born a nurse. It's something that I learned to do, right? So collaborating with each other. How we do that is, you're attending online seminars and such like that. Conferences and workshops. Atlantia is very proactive in going out to our different symposiums and such like that, and going to all these conferences and making a presence. But also, it's, when I've attended with the Atlantia team, we have somebody who's at our booth, but then we're always like, hey, go out and go look and learn. And there's things that I learn when I go to the conferences and such like that. Your medical journals and publications, keeping up to date on all that kind of stuff, webinars, forums, it's back in the day, I did a lot of the phone triage with patients would call in, and I would always say, gosh, I really wish I could like actually see, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Show me, like, what does that wound look like? Because
Hmm.
they could be sometimes painting this horrific picture that you're just
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness. And then when you actually have them come into the office, they've just traveled, they don't feel well, whatever. And then they show up and you're just like, that's just a little scratch.
Yeah.
It's all good. This is
Yeah.
normal. So
I
now
know.
they're all mad at you. So now we realize that, having telehealth and being able to do secure portals and such like that, that we
Hmm.
can send pictures and say, hey, here's what this looks like. And then get, further direction from the clinical team. Instead of always just saying, go to the ER, come in and make an appointment.
Hmm.
It's a little bit easier now.
Yeah.
So, collaborative research networks, belonging to those organizations, the professional organizations and such like that,
Yeah.
being part of advisory board committees.
Hmm.
My goal at some point in my life is potentially going to be, a member of an IRB. So,
Oh, wow.
that's kind of an interest of mine.
Okay.
I would love to go sit in and see how they do things,
Yeah.
from this aspect.
Hmm.
But my goal ultimately is to hopefully maybe one day be able to sit upon one of those IRB boards. Mentoring and training programs are huge because when you have somebody who has a background with knowledge and education and the skills, there's a lot of hands-on that goes into things. There's things that we can have a degree, but we don't always learn those hands-on skills, those
Absolutely.
true
Yeah.
real life skills.
Hmm.
So if you have somebody who's a mentor, and you're doing true training programs,
Hmm.
that's a huge thing because ultimately, let's go back to as a nurse practitioner nurse, because I do I teach NP skills. And so I assess clinical readiness for NP students, nurse practitioner students,
Okay.
of are you ready to go out in the clinical realm
Right.
as a student
Hmm.
to start learning your hands-on skills in that? Is this going to be safe for the patients? And are you ready to do that? Because I don't want to set you up to fail,
Right.
but I also don't want to put anybody in harm's way.
Hmm.
So, I do those, we call them CREs, clinical readiness exams.
Okay.
So, we work through scenarios on that. But I don't feel like reading a book is always going
Yeah.
to give us the answer.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. There's only
And
so much you can get from reading a book, and then you have to go out into the
it's
big bad
never
world.
textbook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's never how the book says it. It's like, I just
Yeah.
remember, it's like you get out into the real world and you're like, that's not what the book says.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
you're whispering to the patient, like, you have to go by what the book
Yeah.
says.
It's never going to be like that. No.
It's
Yeah.
real world. And then social media and blogs, we all
Hmm.
realize that this is huge. It's a social media world now. And so again, it kind of goes back to making sure that, these blogs and the websites and the social medias that you're following, and that you're utilizing are, evidence-based practice. There is
Hmm.
data to support it rather than, Joe's grandma's down the street who had a friend who had a nephew who had a, said to
Yeah.
do this, rub some dirt in the wound and you'll be grand. And you're just like, no. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts to it, but, it's shaped by several key trends,
Hmm.
and advancements. So,
You kind of touched on maybe going to conferences and things like that. I take it you enjoy the face-to-face aspect of meeting people
I
and
do.
learning. Yeah, okay. Because that's one thing from the sales side of it that we get to do quite a bit is to go to conferences and trade shows, but we find it, really beneficial from our side. But I suppose from your side as well, learning and meeting new people, it's always good to hear what's going on in the circuits in real life. So it's nice to hear that you enjoy that part of it as well. So.
I do. I do. Yeah.
Okay, and you kind of touched on it slightly, but the next questions are, what are your predictions for the future of clinical trials? So you kind of touched a little bit on technological advancements, but I'll let you take over.
Yeah. The future of clinical trials. Oh my gosh. Like I get this question, like, where do you think we're going to be in clinical trial? Where are we going with clinical trials?
Mhm.
We're going places. We're making it more accessible for people.
Yeah.
So diversity and inclusion is huge. You can get that perfect population, everybody healthy, but that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah.
Our population is not always healthy. And so you want a good mix of every type of population that we can get. So being able to reach people who maybe are in rural areas, right? So there's a lot of people with decreased access to care, right? So we have people who maybe live 2 hours from a good healthcare, system in that,
Yes.
so they have to travel. So being able to do remote is great to reach people that we really want. We want this different populations within these other communities. We want ethnicities and races and ages and people with different types of health issues and
Absolutely.
such like that. We want everybody, involved and to be able to include everybody, to give them that opportunity, but then
Absolutely.
also again, like our backgrounds and genetic and such like that plays a huge part in different things. That we're really realizing more and more now. So, decentralized clinical trials, that's a huge thing. Artificial intelligence, oh my gosh, and machines,
Yes.
we've got a lot of, we got sim labs now within the medical world to where you have, the doctors, instead of going out and practicing on, patients, let's say, they're actually learning like through robots and such like
Wow.
that, through
Okay.
AI on how to manipulate and do things. Again, we're looking at safety and ethical and such like that. And then also sometimes like working out bugs, like, oh, this isn't going to work if we have, this type of person or whatever. So, big data, real world evidence, it's huge. Blockchain technology, goodness sakes. Patient-centric approaches. Again, I said diversity and inclusion, data privacy, security. That's a huge thing. We've had a lot of different data breaches within some big name, health systems and such throughout, and corporations in general, not necessarily with like health, but it's a big thing. Unfortunately, cybersecurity, it's sad, but that's how our world is. So we have to be able to be prepared for that.
Right.
Pandemic preparedness, we had clinical trials going on during COVID.
Yeah.
That shut everything down, to be in Chicago with no traffic was just, it was
Insane.
eerie.
Yeah.
It's not it's not right. So, being prepared of, okay, well, we were seeing all these people. Now what do we do? How are we going to do this? And if we have to have labs, where are we going to send people and what to do? So, having all that kind of preparedness and readiness.
Flexibility is
focusing-
massive there, because being able to switch from potentially doing an in-clinic visit to a remote visit. So having that flexibility that you maybe can change, and having that maybe wrote into a protocol or something, you don't know what's coming, but having the flexibility to move as well. Yeah.
So, and focusing on chronic diseases and aging population, we're growing older, way back when you weren't staying alive for a whole lot of years anymore. And now we've got an older population. And so what does that look like? And what do we need to do with that? Well, we need to include them in our clinical trials so we can learn and be prepared of, as we age, and here's how we have to look at these people and such like that. So including them.
And I think, we're talking about healthy aging, but when, you want a good quality of like aged life. So it's about making life longer, but making those last few years a good quality of life as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's amazing. You touched on a load of different points there. So thank you. I'll jump into the fun rapid fire round. So you wouldn't have seen these questions, but just say the first thing that comes to your mind. So we'll start. If you could live in any era, what would you choose, the past or the future?
Ooh, I like the 20s, actually. So the past.
Okay. Would you rather start your day with a morning workout or a long breakfast?
Morning workout.
Okay. If you had to choose a hobby, would it be painting or writing?
Painting.
Painting, artsy, okay. Would you rather live in a tiny house in the city or a mansion in the countryside?
Mansion in the countryside, only because I like the countryside.
Yes, you should come to Ireland. Okay, would you rather never get stuck in traffic again or never have to wait in line again?
Never have to wait in line again.
Yeah, especially for your morning coffee, yes. Would you rather talk to animals or be able to understand every language?
Oh, that's a tough one. I love talking to my animals, but being able to understand language is huge. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going with the language there?
Yeah, because I talk to animals.
Anyway, okay. Okay, only two more. Are you a sunrise hike or a midnight stroll kind of person?
Sunrise hike.
Okay. And then last one, would you prefer being an early bird or a night owl forever?
Early bird. I'm
Early
not a
bird. We're getting it here that you're a morning workout, sunrise hike, early bird. You like the morning time. Okay.
Yes.
So don't come to you in the evening time with questions. No. Okay. Amazing. Okay, Stacey, last question. So if you weren't working in clinical research and had to do something else, what would it be?
Bedside care, absolutely.
Okay, really?
I still love that clinical realm. I love my hands-on. I love the interaction with people. So, mentoring, teaching at the bedside, real true life, showing this is not textbook. This is really what it is.
Okay, amazing. And then do you have any hobbies outside of that aren't related to maybe research?
That's not related to research. Oh, absolutely. I am like outdoors person all the way. So, hiking in the mountains, swimming, warm weather, most definitely.
Okay.
Softball, volleyball. I was
Oh,
an
wow,
avid
okay.
athlete. So absolutely.
Oh, so you're super
Anything
active.
outdoors.
Okay.
Yes.
And you're not a winter person, I'm getting here?
I mean, born and raised in Chicago, but I've done my winters, so I'm good now.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah. I like the seasons, but I think the winter is just a little bit too long in Chicago or too harsh. So you enjoy the summer when it comes. At least you get a good summer. So very good. Okay, amazing. Thank you so, so much. It was great talking to you, and have a great rest of your morning.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've come to the end. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below because we have plenty more content coming soon.